But Brandon, let's move on into our next topic. And what we are looking at is still the NFL draft, but we're moving over from quarterbacks into the running backs. And before we get into everything, I got to let you guys know, make sure to go on to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and rate and review the podcast, the Primetime Podcast. Just type Primetime Podcast into the little search bar on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. You'll see the PTP logo, the yellow Heisman Primetime Podcast. Go onto that, hit that subscribe button, and also go ahead and rate. Hopefully we're giving you that 5-star product that we shoot for. I think we've got a 4.5, which is not perfect, but I'll take a 4.5 over a 1.5.
It's because we were those good old boys back in the beginning.
Good old boys at the beginning, and then we decided to change because we can't be a couple of good old boys. But we are not in this segment, Brandon. Next segment we will be, because we're going to look at Jalen Hurts. But we're taking a look at Bryce Love, and this is a guy who we've seen the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows with his draft process. Last year would have came out, would have been a highly touted running back pick, probably could have been a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Then this year has a disappointing season at Stanford. We go ahead and find out that when he said that he was not going to play in the team's bowl game because he wanted to focus on his health, we learned that that meant that he was getting ACL surgery for his torn ACL that same day or the day after or right around that time. This is an injury that, depending on who you are, it's vastly different. You could be a fast healer. It only takes you 6 months. Some it takes you 9 months. Some takes you a full year to get back. Then you don't know exactly how much motion you're going to have in that knee, which is crucial for a running back who is going to have to be making cuts on that knee. This is a guy who is right now, before this news, a day 2 draft pick in the NFL. What do you think this does to Bryce Love's draft stock?
It hurts it. It definitely hurts it because, like you mentioned, Ricky, he wasn't going to be a first-round pick this year anyways. And now he's going to have to battle back, and I truly mean battle back. I mean, we've seen it, for anybody, any friends that have been athletes, played in college, but anytime that they've done it, it's a battle to come back. And how you come back all depends on how hard you work. I fully expect Bryce Love to work extremely hard to get back from this, but it is a process. It can be a long process. And then are you at where you once were? And that's the biggest question. That's going to be the question that every team's going to have. Are you in your junior year form? And that's when he had over 2,000 yards on the ground. That's when he had 19 touchdowns. That's when Bryce Love looked like a number 1 or certainly a top 5 pick.
Or even a Heisman candidate
in the draft. Now, it is his last season. He has a chance to come out and go to the draft. He says, no, I'm going to go back. You can't fault him for that. He didn't think that this would happen. He went back to be even better. And you have to, have to be very happy and proud of that. But it didn't work out for him. And this is the downside to going back to college and going back for another year to finish it out and play your senior season. But he had such a bad senior season. When he was on the field, he wasn't good. He was off the field for most of the year, it felt like. And this was just a really tough spot for Bryce Love. I think that he's definitely going to see his draft stock fall.
Yeah, and the troubling thing about this is I'm going to look up the exact dates for this because in the same ESPN article that I had sent us about the story, it says in it that Love intends to participate in the NFL scouting combine in some way and told Yahoo Sports he was opening up about his injury to be transparent to the NFL teams that could be interested in drafting him. And, that's going to be tricky. So I don't know exactly what he the thing that is tough about it is, so he had the surgery, that would have been in December, that he had the surgery. So that means by the NFL Combine, it would have been just roughly 2 months since, because he tore it on December 18th, had the surgery around the end of December. So that puts the Combine at 2 months away from the injury. And at that point, you are just beginning because how it goes for ACL injuries is from 0 to 2 weeks, you're resting. You're just resting. Then from 2 to 4 weeks, you're moving around. And then from 2 months to 6 months, that's when you're actually starting your rehabilitation of the injury. So the Combine, it's going to be interesting to see how much he can do at the Combine, because that is going to be just at the beginning of his rehab process for this injury.
And that's a big part of it. That's a big part of it, the rehab. Mm-hmm. How long is it going to take? Some people are able to have it pretty speedy, and
look at AP.
They're good. They're good to go in a shorter time frame. Mm-hmm. Others, it's longer. Some you have a relapse, or you have something that goes wrong in terms of your rehabilitation, and it is going to take much longer. I mean, you just look at the talent that we know he does have, and it's a shame that I don't think he's going to be drafted based on what that is. He's being drafted now, I'm almost certain of it, based off of what he did this past season. Mm-hmm. And his past season stats, he played in 10 games, 166 carries for 739 yards, 6 TDs, 20 catches, 99 yards. Yards from scrimmage, under 900 at 838, 6 total TDs. In 2017, he had over 2,100 yards from scrimmage and 19 touchdowns. He scored more touchdowns in his first 2 seasons than he did in that last year. He had 7 in his first 2. He had 6 in 2018. It's just, I'm honestly, I'm almost heartbroken for him. Mm-hmm. You see a guy go from being a locked in first round talent, where, don't know. Mm-hmm. I would have said probably a higher pick based off of him coming out after 2017, to now being, well, maybe he goes day 3. Maybe he goes day 3. I just think that this is, it's really hard to see. And that's when, and I know that he's not really part of the conversation, but he could be. You're saying, for a guy like Justin Herbert, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't go back. You understand his reason for going back, but don't go back. Look what happened over here. Well, what happened over here. People are already talking about how, as they did with Love, people are talking about how you'll be a top pick. 1 through 5, maybe not. 1 through 10, definitely. Don't go back because you fear this. And I get it. I'm on the other side.
Even before the injury, too.
I know.
Yeah.
But I'm on the other side because I'd say, yes, go back. You feel you want to go back, go back. You could be better. You could become better. But there's always this chance of an injury or a flop season.
Yeah, and the thing that I wonder with it is, if Bryce Love didn't have this injury, the thing that I would have thought was he'd be a prime contender for the Eagles. I'm actually going to pull up their draft picks because I want to see if they have their second and third round. But let's see, Philadelphia. Yeah, no, he could have been a prime candidate for the Eagles in the second round because they have their own second round pick, which is 57th. They also have Baltimore's second round pick, which is 53rd. They actually do not have a third-round pick. Then they have one in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and then none in the 7th. That's the only team right now. If you look at, and of course, free agency could change all this. Team needs definitely change after free agency in the NFL. But as of right now, the only team that is in dire need of a running back are the Philadelphia Eagles. Because you look at it, Jay Ajayi, injured. He's going to be a free agent this year. What do you even do with him? Him coming off of injury, what are you doing with Jay Ajayi? Maybe they bring him back if he's cheap, but still, you don't know. Then you've got Darren Sproles. He's a free agent this year. That means your running backs are Wendell Smallwood, Corey Clement, Josh Adams, and Boston Scott. Those are the only ones on the roster for next year.
The Eagles seem to be going. They didn't seem to do much with him at all in the postseason, unless he got hurt, and I forgot Adams.
No, Adams was the only one
because Josh Adams. I didn't think he was hurt for the postseason, but they didn't do anything with him, and they started to. But he started to be their main running back towards the end of the season. And the Philadelphia Eagles, that's the problem, is they seem to be a team where it's who's the hot hand this week. Oh, if it's, we'll start off with, using all 3 or 4, it feels like they have 10 running backs that they'll work in. Okay, you have the hot hand, you're going to run the rest of the game. The rest of you, you're sitting down. So that's almost like, do you even want to go into that situation? Will you get any work in? I don't know.
Well, that's like, there's a headline here from NBC Sports Philadelphia where they said, the headline reads, Josh Adams' disappearance highlights need for talent infusion at running back, where he just disappeared. And the thing that I would think about before is Bryce Love pre-injury, like before we knew the injury would happen, take a stab on him in the second round. He got 2 second-round picks. Why not? The thing that I wonder now is he going to be drafted? Yes. The question I have with Bryce Love that I still don't know an answer for, and I don't think we will get an answer until the draft combine, because you know what might be the most important thing for Bryce Love at the combine? Like the minimal, what he'll need to do to help his draft stock? The physical. Because there are going to be teams at the combine that are like, we want to, if possible, we want a physical. We want to know exactly where you are with your knee, because one thing we haven't mentioned, and both you and I have seen this firsthand with athletes during our career of calling sports in college, is once you tear a knee ligament, it's very easy to do it again. Like, there's no guarantee that you'll do it again, but I'll use the example, we used to call games in college and saw one athlete tear their ACL multiple times, and eventually, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, 2 times or 3 times that we saw the player, the one that I'm thinking of. It was 2 times, I think, and it ended her career to where it's like she couldn't come back to play on that team.
You'll have to tell me off the air, because I think you're making that up.
I thought we had one that had multiple ACL injuries, unless I'm mistaking it. But that's the thing. Is it going to happen again? Look at, and I'm bringing this in, of course, this is basketball. Look at the Porter family from basketball. Yeah, John Tay only tore it once, but he's got 2 sisters that did it multiple times. Like, some did it 4 or 5 times, it seemed like, from the report that we had. So, I mean, their teams are going to want to really be sure that your rehab is going well, and it's going to be difficult when you're just starting that rehab around that time. I think this could be an issue where he was a day 2 back, might be a day 3 back.
Yep, I was going to say that earlier.
He might be a 4 to 7 round. I don't think he goes 7th, but he could be a 4th, 5th, or 6th round running back where a team, let's say in the 6th round at the latest, goes, screw it, let's take a flyer on him.
It's crazy. He had previously been listed as the number 2 draft-eligible running back by Todd McShay before this injury. I mean, that's That's crazy. I think that another thing that needs to happen for Bryce Love is, away from the injury, he needs to become a better pass-catching running back.
Especially where the league is going.
Absolutely. Because if you're not, you're only in maybe on first and second down. You're out for third. You might in on passing downs. So which is usually third down. But I think that is one thing where he definitely needs to get better. I thought that he was starting to maybe do it a little bit, but then this year there was nothing. There really wasn't a good sample. I think he caught maybe 20 passes for 99 yards. But that's one of the things also too, that it's not just necessarily about his injury. It's also about all your skills. Yes, you're good in the running game. We know what he can do there, but you have to get better as a pass-catching running back, especially if you would even want to be an every down back.
Let's be honest. Look at this, and maybe we can take this into consideration. Not only does this fit the top 1 and 2 seeds for both of the playoffs, but all 4 teams right now in the playoffs still, 3 of those 4 don't have a single bell cow. Chiefs, I'm going to say Chiefs, Patriots, and Saints all have multiple backs. For the Saints, it's 2. For the Chiefs, they have their stable of offensive weapons, it seems.
Well, but they
cycle guys in and out at that running back
But they
position.
had Kareem Hunt. They had Kareem Hunt. Before he went and did what he did, he was the number 1 guy.
But what I'm saying is and maybe the Chiefs are the exception to the rule because of what that offense is, they still make it work. And then the Patriots, they've always been a team where it's been like...
This year, though, less. Sony Michel. It's been pretty much Sony Michel.
But they still have that, like, oh, James White, we need a pass-catching option. Like, I saw, and I don't know if he broke it because I tuned out because the game was a blowout, but they're like, wow, he has 14 receptions, 1 more, and he ties Darren Sproles for the most receptions from a running back in a playoff game, and they have that option. Sony Michel's been the main runner, but they have that option out of the backfield, and now with this injury, I don't think Bryce Love becomes that main rusher for a team, so that might be important for, like you said, develop this other option, be that guy that can help a team out in different ways. The thing I want to ask you is, very quickly, like here at the end, what does this mean for other guys? And the guy that I think of, your favorite guy, you never want to think of like how one injury, like this sucks for Bryce Love, but it's a positive for other guys where now in my mind, doesn't this move David Montgomery right into that number 2 position behind Damian Harris? The running backs?
Yeah, I think it does. And now, some people could also say that Montgomery is above Damian Harris in the running backs, and especially if you're talking about your bowl games. You need to have good bowl games, and I think mine was Damian Harris from the running back position. Was that they didn't use him as much as I thought that they would have, and would have liked that they would have. There was a lot of Josh Jacobs. There was a lot of Najee Harris. There wasn't as much Damian Harris. And that's why I almost think Montgomery is going to move in front of him, or even could be sitting in front of him right now, because it really wasn't a question of, oh, who's going to be the running back that carries the ball today? It's going to be David Montgomery. It's going to be Montgomery. It's not, well, it could be Harris, could be Jacobs, could be Harris, it could be somebody else. I mean, that's the question. That's the kind of the question. And again, not to say that Damian Harris is bad. I do not think that at all. But I also think that was he able to put on display in those last couple of games everything that he had? And the answer is definitely no.
So you think it still could be a fight for the top spot?
Yeah, I do.
Because like I'm looking right here, and of course everyone's going to have their own rankings, but this is according to thedraftnetwork.com. They have Bryce Love as 10. Here are the 9 guys they have above him. Number 1, they got Damian Harris. Number 2, David Montgomery. Number 3, Rodney Anderson from Oklahoma. Number 4, Elijah Hollywood from Georgia. Then at 5, Myles Gaskin from Washington. 6, Justice Hill Oklahoma State. Mike Sanders at 7, the running back from Penn State. Then Travion Williams, the running back from Texas A&M. And then at 9, Kerryon Higdon, the running back from Michigan. And the next two right after Bryce Love that could easily pass him depending on this injury, Benny Snell from Kentucky, Mike Weber from Oklahoma. Like, there are backs here that, I mean, the way I see it is we don't have that. If there's going to be a first-round running back, it'll probably be Harris or Montgomery. Other than that, any of these guys could be taken in the second and later. Of like, we could have a lot of mid-round running backs kind of taken because each of these guys are good in their own way, but they kind of don't stand out. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have that draft class that like a couple years ago where it was like, wow, we've got these two running backs, they're going to go in the first round. Or like a Zeke where it's like top 5, or like a Leonard Fournette, like, wow, he's a top 5 running back. We don't have that. And for me, the one thing I will say, and this could be a benefit for either Montgomery or Harris, could be a good thing that Matt LaFleur got hired by the Packers, and if they get the 32nd overall pick, who knows? Maybe LaFleur goes, hey, I had a guy like Derrick Henry at Tennessee. I'd love to have an Alabama back again. Let me go with Damian Harris, who kind of fits that same mold because Alabama backs are kind of all the same. Like Mark Ingram, like Trent Richardson was the only one that didn't pan out, but like Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, right up the middle type guys.
Hard
bruiser,
runners.
Yeah.
Hard runners. Mm-hmm. They don't need one, though. They've got Aaron Jones. Mm-hmm. They don't need a running back.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, is that they don't need one. Where they could use one, but they need a whole lot of other things, is also in Miami.
Yeah.
They could use one in Miami. They could use one in New York for the Jets.
You're talking could use a running back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, there's none of those teams. Well, I thought that they had it in Kenyon Drake, talking of another Alabama running back.
Yeah.
But Kenyon Drake, he was a guy who obviously not this past year, but the year before, the last like 6 games or so, he was a stud. Everyone's thinking, oh man, he's going to come into this year and just continue to do the same thing. They didn't know what they were doing. They like Frank Gore, who's 39 years old. They like Kenyon Drake. They're like, we're going to go with Gore a little bit more here. And then Kenyon Drake, maybe we'll bring you in. And then they didn't know what they were doing over in Miami with the running game. New York is similar. They don't have really that guy. There are a number of spots, I think, that are similar to that, where they have some running backs, but they don't have that guy. They haven't found their number one guy yet.
You know who could also need one? Oakland. Marshawn Lynch and Doug Martin up after this year. The only running backs they have on the books after this year are DeAndre Washington and Chris Warren. Jalen Richard is a restricted free agent. He probably will be back, but it'll be interesting. What do you do with Marshawn Lynch and Doug Martin? Do you bring them back? Do you go to a back in Mike Mayock knows what a Raider smells like, so he'll be able to find you a running back in the draft if that's what you're thinking. But then John Gruden's the one that makes the call, so I don't know what Mike Mayock's doing there. That's just a huge mess. But they could need a running back is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that when it comes down to it, guys will fall into the spots where they go, and they'll have an impact. I'm sure they will. It may not be Saquon Barkley-esque, but they will in some way, shape, or form. But Bryce Love, I still think big old question mark on Bryce Love. What's going to happen? What does his future hold? How quickly will he come back from the injury? How does he come back how does he play once he does come back from the injury? There's just a lot of question marks around Bryce Love. A once very, very anticipated running back is now almost an afterthought.
And I was originally going to ask you, I can't ask you where you think he'll fall because we got to see what happens at the combine. I was originally going to ask you for a prediction of good combine, bad combine for Bryce Love, but I decided not to with that one. We might have to follow up on this one after the combine to see what exactly happened
we should.
with Bryce Love. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. What will be the stock for Bryce Love in the draft following this ACL injury.